Oh my goodness, y'all. It has been a hot minute since I've been able to come and sit down and talk with you guys, that I've even been here on YouTube. I think my last video was like 2 months ago, or maybe even over that. And the reason why I haven't been putting out videos as consistently as I was before is because I just really felt like it was starting to overtake too much of my time. I really want to make sure that I'm always prioritizing my family, and I just didn't feel like I was able to do that with editing videos, and I felt like I was kind of pushing my kids away while I was trying to do that. And so I really wanted to nip it in the butt and just refocus my priorities. And you know, I still love making videos, I still want to make videos, but they probably just won't be coming out as consistently as they were, like I was doing every Wednesday. But as you can see, we've had a lot of changes going on here in our household. If you guys have followed my journey at all, you will know that I was pregnant and going through the pregnancy mostly carnivore, eating a carnivore diet, and then I would have some keto foods here and there, just kind of seeing what I would tolerate. But as you can tell, I am no longer pregnant, and I have this sweet, luscious, cute boy of joy. And yes, we did have a boy. If you guys watched my previous videos, you would know that I had a hunch that I was going to have a boy. This is our third baby. I do have a 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. And so I was just trying to compare and contrast how I felt between those pregnancies and this pregnancy. And I just felt like I was having a boy this time. And what do you know? Oh, you say hi. Mwah. So he's been a really good baby for us, and I feel so blessed. But I really do feel like it's needed to catch you guys up to speed. I was hoping to make this video like a week after he was born, but like, let's be honest, that was not happening. It was quite an adjustment trying to adjust to 3 kids, and waking up at night and being sleep deprived, and then just time just slips away from you. So it is now a little bit over a month. He just turned a month old 2 days ago. And so yeah, I finally found the time to sit down and fill you guys in, which I'm super excited to do, and just let you guys know my birth story, how it went, and how this first time, you know, pregnancy being low carb went. Like I said, I was trying to do it mostly carnivore, and I did have a few keto foods here and there, just as tolerated. So yeah, enough of me gabbering and jabbering, and let's just get right into it. So this time around, my contractions started, they were on the morning of, what was it? It was a Sunday. Yep, Sunday, March 22nd. So I started having contractions very light in the morning, probably around 6 a.m. And they were just, you know, kind of like a tightening in my stomach. Normally I have contractions that are in my lower back. They kind of like just a low like backache, and so I didn't really think that these were contractions right away. It was just a different sensation for me, and I was just kind of like, oh gosh, did I not eat something right last night? Is my stomach just upset with something? Because even when I have my period, I get that low back pain for cramps. And so this was completely different. And for my first 2 pregnancies, I definitely had contractions in my lower back, and that's where they started. So I was definitely taken off guard that they started in the front this time. Also, they were really spread apart when they first started. They were coming about every, 10 to 12 to maybe 15 minutes, and then they would go away. And so I really wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm going into labor, because it was just, it started different than my first 2 pregnancies, or my first 2 labors went. So I will also mention that in my first 2 pregnancies, I never experienced any Braxton Hicks, but with this one I did. And so I only experienced them once, and it was about 3 weeks prior to me going into labor. I was out taking the kids for a walk, and we ended up walking for about 2 hours. And so afterwards I came home, I sat down, and I started having some like crampy feelings in my stomach. And I was like, what is this? And I remember calling Gabe, my husband, and telling him after they had gone away that, oh gosh, I thought I was going into labor. During the contractions, I was having them probably like kind of every 10 to 12 minutes, and they weren't very heavy, they weren't very light, but after about 4 hours they went away. And so that's where I decided, oh okay, they were Braxton Hicks, they weren't something that were gonna stick around. And so I wasn't going into labor at that point. But like I said, I've never had Braxton Hicks with any other pregnancy. And so it just kind of made me think like maybe I'll go into labor a little bit earlier this time. So once again, this morning that I started to have these light contractions, I kind of in my mind was like, oh, I bet these are just Braxton Hicks again. And so I didn't really think much of it, and I kind of went about my day doing my normal things. Also, I didn't mention this, but prior to me having these light contractions this morning, on the Sunday of March 22nd, my husband the day before had somehow convinced me to go on a 5-mile walk with our kids. So it's kind of like an inside joke with us. Once I get close to my due date, he makes it like his personal mission to try and put me into labor. And he's been successful the first 2 times. So he wanted to make sure that he was able to be successful this time as well. And you know what, guys, he was, because literally the next day I went into labor. So yeah, went on a 5-mile walk. I mean, those walks, ladies, those walks will induce labor, let me tell you. And the funny thing about this pregnancy is I felt so much more energy. So I felt like I was able to go on walks and to go on hikes and just spend time with my family that way. And it wasn't like super painful like I remember the first few times. Like, because we all know, like, if you've been pregnant and you're at the end of your pregnancy, like, all right, so my camera battery just died, but I went ahead and switched out the battery. So I'm trying to think of where I left off. I think I was talking about how much better I felt during this pregnancy, and just how I wasn't as sore. I just felt like my body was handling the soreness of pregnancy better than it did previously in my first 2 pregnancies at that stage of being at the end of my pregnancy. But anyways, I was kind of going on a tangent there. All my babies so far have come early. They've come before their due dates. My first baby boy, who's now 4 years old, Zane, he came 4 days early. And then my second baby, Maddie, she came 9 days early. And so with our newest baby, our 3rd child, he actually came 5 days early. So it is kind of nice that I haven't had to wait for my due date to come and go for our babies to arrive. But at the same time, it's always a surprise when they do come, because I'm not always expecting it. I kind of thought, well, with this 3rd child, it's going to be the child that's going to go past its due date and I'm going to be pregnant forever. And I didn't actually mind, because in all honesty, we don't know if this is going to be our last baby or if we're going to try for another one after this. Obviously, we're going to wait a while. But yeah, so I was just really trying to soak in every single moment of this pregnancy, and I really was enjoying it. So I definitely was surprised when the baby did decide to come 5 days early. So yeah, I was having these contractions at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They started and they went throughout the day. And I didn't mention anything to Gabe because I knew that he would be all excited if I told him that I was having contractions, and I didn't want to give him false hope because I wasn't quite sure if they were contractions yet, because like I said, they just felt different than my first two pregnancies. And so I finally was able to tell him around the afternoon. I think it was about 2 o'clock. We had just put the kids down for a nap around 1, and then we ended up watching like a little video online together. Oh, baby, it's okay. Where's your mother? Where's your mother? Don't mind me, this is dual recording. Someone got hungry, so he's eating while I'm gonna finish this. But anyways, so we finished watching the video that we were watching, and we ended up falling asleep on the couch together. And when I woke up from the nap around 2 o'clock, I was still having the contractions. And so I was like, my gosh, these are not going away. And so I'm like, they might be the real deal in that case. So I went ahead and told Gabe that I had contractions, and I was thinking that they could be real contractions, and he right away told me, oh my goodness, they are real. We're gonna have a baby tonight. And he obviously was super excited. But I was like, no, honey, I'm not sure. Oh, bless you. Oh, bless you. Are you okay? But yeah, so anyways, I was like, no, like, don't get too excited, because these could just be Braxton Hicks again, and they feel different than like normal contractions. But he was absolutely confident that we were going to have a baby by the end of the day. And let's just say he wasn't too wrong about that. So after we woke up from that nap, I was just kind of taking it easy around the house. I ended up laying down for a little bit, and just kind of, was just trying to, see if my body was really wanting to go into labor. So I remember I was laying on the bed here in this room where I'm filming this video, and I was just kind of like, having contractions, I guess, about 10 minutes apart still. They were super light. They weren't really getting much heavier or anything like that. And yeah, I was just laying there and kind of like dozing off here and there, just kind of thinking. So yeah, like all of a sudden as I was laying down, I just had this stronger contraction. It wasn't like super painful, but it was definitely stronger than what I've been having consistently all throughout the day. And I was like, oh, it kind of took me by surprise. And I'm like, that was really the first contraction where I was like, I think this is real labor. And so I just ended up laying on the bed for a while longer, and then all of a sudden I had one contraction that was strong, and then immediately after I had another contraction come on that was just as strong, and then I had another one come. And so they were like back to back to back, but they still like were coming super far apart, if that makes sense. So it took like 10 minutes for that contraction to come, and then I had 3 of them back to back to back. And then as I was laying there after those 3 contractions had happened, I didn't have another one until like 10-15 minutes later. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's not like they're getting like closer together, but they are getting more intense, and they were like coming on top of each other. So that was something that was different that I never had before with my other pregnancies, pregnancies and labors, I should say. The contractions gradually got closer and closer together as they got stronger and stronger. But this one, the contractions just started getting stronger and more on top of each other, and then I would go long stretches without having another contraction again. So it was about 4 o'clock by the time I told Gabe, I think we should go into the hospital. Now, ideally, I like to labor at the house for as long as I can. That's just where I feel the most comfortable, and I obviously want to be as far along as I possibly can be before I go to the hospital. That way it kind of lessens the chance of them having to do any interventions that I wouldn't want to have. I feel like these contractions are getting so much heavier, and I just felt like I couldn't relax like I wanted to. And so knowing that we had a half an hour drive into town to go to the hospital, that kind of unsettled me as well. Just because I wasn't sure with this labor, the way that it was going, it just seemed like it wasn't gradual. It was like, bam, I would move into a next step. Like first the contractions were light, they were like, for a good while, and then bam, I like jumped a hurdle and they were starting to get more stronger. And at this point, they still weren't super painful or anything like that, but they were definitely stronger than they had been previously throughout the day. So I told my husband, I think it's time for us to go. And he jumped right into action. He got the kids in the car. He got the dog all packed up. And I was able to get a hold of one of my amazing friends, and she said that she would be able to watch the kids for us. And my husband had set up where he would have one of his friends watch our dog, and so everything kind of worked out really good. We got into the car, we drove the half an hour to the hospital, and during that half an hour drive, I only had 3 contractions. I had one right before we were leaving the house, I had one when we were just about getting into town, and then I had one just when we were about to go into the hospital. So we were able to drop off the kids, drop off the dog, and then we got to the hospital, and so it really wasn't bad. It wasn't really a bad car ride into town, and I was happy that we left when we did. I was still smiling, I was still able to joke, I was still able to talk, like the contractions were not overtaking me, and I felt really safe and happy that we were at the hospital, and that way I could just get down to relaxing and get in bed and, not have to worry about having to get up again when the contractions were really intense. So we did get to the hospital, and they led us to the room. They told us, I got in the gown, and they told us that the doctor was going to be, the doctor that was on call was going to be in about an hour, but they were going to have a nurse come and check me, and see if I was able to be admitted or not. And I was telling my husband, I was like, gosh, I'm so nervous that I won't be able to be admitted, and I don't know what we're gonna do if they like say, oh, you know, go home and come back when you're more dilated, because I really didn't feel like I was that far along. And so I know with my first labor with my son, I got to the hospital and I was about 4 centimeters dilated, and so they did keep me. My second pregnancy or labor with my daughter, I got to the hospital and I was already dilated to a 7. And so that was definitely a good amount when you only have to get dilated to a 10. And so I was actually a little bit nervous that I wasn't that far along with this labor, just because I felt like I hadn't been laboring for that long where the contractions were that intense. And so the nurse went ahead and checked me pretty much right after we got there, and she said that she was quite certain that I was dilated to a 4, maybe even more. So right away I was relieved. I was like, thank goodness, like at least I know they're gonna admit me and they won't send us back home. And then after that, she checked me and she was like, I'm not quite sure though, because I'm not the greatest at checking for how far people are dilated, and so I'm gonna go ahead and get my friend who is a nurse as well, and she's gonna come in and double check to make sure that you are, you know, at a 4 or what she thought it was at. And so the other nurse came in shortly after and she went ahead and checked me. And like when she checked me, I'm not gonna lie, like she like shoved her fingers up in me to the point of where it actually hurt, and I felt a lot of pressure to the point of where I felt like she broke my water. I just felt like a little leak of fluid come out of me, and at the time I wasn't sure if it was just like the lubricant that she uses to go up in me, and I didn't know if that was what it was, but it felt like my water breaking, but not like a complete gush, just like a little trickle. And so she checked me, this other nurse friend of my nurse, and she said, oh, you're definitely at a 5, probably more of a 6. And so that was really encouraging to hear, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm already at almost a 6, and like it hadn't been like super hard so far, you know. Usually I feel like it's a lot more intense to get to a 6. But anyways, the doctor came in after about an hour, and he checked me and he said that I was already at a 7, maybe almost an 8. And so I was definitely progressing really fast in my labor. And he said he wasn't going anywhere. He was going to stick around and make sure that he would be here and not miss the birth. And so after that, I was just kind of laboring. The contractions were definitely strong, but they weren't like, you know, overbearing. They weren't something that I couldn't handle. And I was just in the room. The lights were down low because I asked them to keep the room dark, and it was just me and Gabe in the room, besides nurses coming in every so often to just kind of check my vitals. And so after that, everything just went really fast. I had a strong contraction, and after that, a really strong one come on top of that. And you know, it was probably about an hour of just quietly laboring in the room that I told Gabe, I was like, we need to get a nurse. I feel like I have to push. And so my contractions just seemed to jump, you know, from being very manageable to being not very manageable at all. And I was definitely having a hard time trying to relax through the contractions just because they came on so strong and so fast. And so Gabe went out and got the nurse, and they went and checked me, and they said I was at a 10. And so I was like, oh my goodness, like, thank goodness I'm at a 10, because that way I can push and I don't have to suffer with that feeling of wanting to push, but you know, you're not being fully dilated yet. And so they went ahead and got the doctor. The doctor came in right away, and I started pushing. And I was probably pushing for a good few minutes before our little boy came out. We hadn't known at the time what we were having, and so that was a super exciting moment to be able to see that we were having a boy, or that we had a boy. And we waited until the cord stopped pulsing before Gabe went ahead and cut it. So it was just really cool, because I felt like with this pregnancy I was only in active labor for like 4 hours compared to the 8 and the 16 of my labors before, because I wasn't really having like those stronger contractions until around 2 or 3 o'clock, and he came at 7:09 p.m. in the afternoon. So it just happened really quick, really fast. And in my mind, I always was like, oh my gosh, the girls that have those quick labors, the girls that aren't in labor forever, they're the lucky ones. They're the ones that have it so easy, because it's just so much harder being in labor, like for a longer period of time. And now I'm not so sure. Because like I said, it was hard for me to stay on top of those contractions because they were so intense and they just came out of nowhere. Where I was managing quite well, and then bam, all of a sudden they were so intense. And I didn't know how to handle it. But I was able to, like, get through it. And it definitely changed my mind on quick labors. Like, you definitely don't have to endure that feeling for as long of, the pain of a baby coming. But at the same time, it was really intense. And so, I mean, it was cool to be able to get to experience, a much quicker delivery versus especially my first one where I was in labor for 16 hours. And then, being in labor, or active labor, I should say, for 8 hours. Because, like, those light contractions that I was having in the morning, I can hardly consider, like, active labor because I was still going about my day. I was still doing my normal things and it wasn't affecting me. It was really around that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock mark that they started getting more noticeable, more intense. And then, like I said, it was only, like, about 4 hours after that we had him. So, yeah, that was kind of cool. But, like I said, the girls that have them really quick don't think that they have it easy, because it definitely was, it called all my attention to make sure that I was trying to relax my body through those contractions. But yeah, we had him and he was perfect, like crying and full, like he pinked up really quick. They were able to put him on my chest. The weird thing though was my umbilical cord was kind of short, because I guess for some reason it like had a loop in it. It wasn't like knotted or anything like that, but it was like a little bit shorter because it had like grown a little loop and attached to itself. I mean, I didn't even see it, like my husband saw it and like the doctor was showing the nurses. So it wasn't like restricting anything. It wasn't like a knot, or it wasn't like tied up or anything. It just had like an extra little loop, so it was a little bit shorter. So he was kind of like put on my stomach instead of on my chest, which was fine because we cut the cord like soon after it was done pulsing. So he was able to have some one-on-one time with mommy and have a little kangaroo care, right? Oh, you're gonna fall asleep on me, aren't you? And so yeah, it was just a beautiful moment. I was so happy to finally have him out, to finally stop that feeling of wanting to push. And obviously anyone that's given birth or had a baby before, that amazing, incredible feeling when you get to meet your little baby for the first time face to face. And it's just, I look back on it and it just makes me smile and just feel so grateful to God that we just had another healthy child, and that, he just came out so perfect. I mean, that's really all you can say about your kids, is that they're perfect, because we just love them so much. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I ate in the hospital, because I do remember somebody asking me, they private messaged me like what I was going to do, trying to eat carnivore, and being at a hospital where you may not have very many options. And actually at our hospital, it was, they were great. They basically said that I could order anything that I wanted off the menu, so I just basically doubled up on all the meat and the eggs. For breakfast, I would have omelets and cheese with all like bacon, sausage. I just told them to put any kind of meat on there. And so they did that for me, which was really great. And then I had salmon, I had chicken. My husband went out and bought cheese curds for me, so I had a couple of cheeseburgers, what is that? Cheese curds that I was snacking on throughout our stay at the hospital. It was also nice that we only had to stay 24 hours at the hospital from the time of his birth, because with the whole quarantine things that's going on right now, they said that because he was healthy and mom was doing great, baby was doing great, they would let us discharge within 24 hours of his birth instead of staying the usual 48 hours. So that was a huge blessing. I didn't really have to worry too much about what I was going to eat there, because, after a while, like, you feel kind of weird ordering all the meat off the menu, and they ask you like, oh, does she want like the salad, and I would order some salads and some side menu things, and Gabe would just eat them. So, but they seemed kind of weirded out, I guess, in a way, that I was ordering so much meat. But I mean, nobody made any comments. Maybe it was just in my mind. I don't know. But I wasn't shy to do it. I just you know, I was feeding him. He was great at breastfeeding right away, and you know, obviously with breastfeeding you feel hungry, and so my milk hadn't dropped yet or anything like that, but I just wanted to make sure that I was eating enough food in order to be able to supply enough of my milk to him. So yeah, don't feel shy, ladies. Don't feel shy if you are ordering all the meat off the menu, and just know that you're doing the best thing for your baby because you're getting all those good nutrients. And I know it definitely made me feel good when I was there. Kind of sleepy, but this is our Isaiah buck. We love the name Isaiah. It means strong, and it actually comes from a Isaiah, which it means my strength is from Yahweh. And so Isaiah is actually a name from the Bible, but Isaiah is like a derivative of that name. And then we named him the middle name Buck just because my husband really loves hunting. I really love deer meat. It just sounded like a really good, strong middle name for him. And we liked how it sounded with Isaiah. And it just is kind of centered around the things that we love. And so he is just so perfect to us. Like that's the only word I can use to describe him. He really is such a blessing. And we are really grateful to have him join our family. And yeah, I just really wanted to be able to show you guys how it was for me during my carnivore delivery and labor, and just kind of fill you guys in, because I know for those of you that are subscribed to my channel, you have seen my previous videos and how I was doing during this pregnancy, eating a low carb diet, mostly carnivore like I said, with a few keto foods sprinkled in here and there as I felt needed. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That way you won't miss a single video that I will be putting up, and also other people will be able to find my channel the more that you comment and like. And this is the weird way that the algorithm, I think that's how they say it on YouTube, pushes out your videos. So but yeah, I'm so happy that you joined me today, and thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to comment down below if you have any further questions that I didn't get to really talk about or mention, or if you have just any questions about my labor and delivery while doing a low carb diet. I would love to hear them, and I would love to answer them to the best of my ability. But yeah, with that in total, I just want to say once again thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Alright, talk to you later guys. Bye.